Every morning, before the bells of the town chapel chimed 7, the same soft routine unfolded inside the tiny corner restaurant on Mill Street. Sunlight filtered weakly through the dusty front window, slanting across a floor mottled with age. The air carried the scent of diluted coffee and yesterday's toast, mixing with the faint clatter of knives and forks still being set on tables. She was already there, always was. Slipping behind the counter like a shadow, sleeves rolled up just so, apron looped twice at the waist. No one greeted her. No one needed to. She simply began, wiping each glass until it caught light, lining them precisely along the shelf, adjusting the sugar bowls so the labels faced forward. Nothing loud, nothing special, but consistent, like the whisper of a clock's second hand. Some regulars forgot her name, if they ever knew it, but they'd notice if she weren't there. Table 4 was always wiped twice. The old man in the corner always got his coffee just right. Half cream, no sugar, steaming, never scorching. Somehow she remembered. And on that particular morning, a man sat at the table closest to the counter. He didn't ask for anything, didn't look at the menu, just sat there, hands folded, eyes calm, watching, not her exactly, but everything. He wore a dark coat, too heavy for the weather, and his hair was the kind that seemed to resist combs. She saw him glance once toward the door, then back down. He stayed like that for maybe 10 minutes. Then he stood, left a tip untouched in the saucer, and walked out before the sunlight reached the booths. She didn't ask. She never did. Just moved to table 4 and began polishing the already clean salt shaker, like she always did. Just after 9, the quiet rhythm of the morning broke, not with a shout, but a soft click. The door closed behind a pair of polished shoes. The man was dressed like he didn't belong there. A slate gray suit, a wristwatch too clean for this town, and a voice that floated a little too far above everyone else's. He ordered eggs and toast, then called her back 5 minutes later, not with a raised hand, but a snap of his fingers. "These eggs," he said, lifting his fork like a scalpel, "they're undercooked. Bring me another plate." She nodded, took the plate without meeting his eyes. But then he said it, sharp, careless, and loud enough for the room to lean in. "Honestly, do you even think you're clean enough to serve me?" A fork dropped somewhere, conversation stilled. Someone cleared their throat. The owner, who'd been leaning by the kitchen pass, looked up and scowled, not at the man, but at her. He didn't say a word, just shot her a look like she'd embarrassed the whole place, like she had broken something. At the corner table, a woman with a heavy coat whispered to her friend, "That girl's always been lazy. Surprised she still works here." She didn't move. Her hand still holding the cup of coffee she'd been about to place at table 4, didn't tremble. But they didn't lower either. She didn't flinch, though something in her jaw tightened, like she had trained herself not to react. Her eyes fixed somewhere just behind the man's shoulder, on a speck on the window that the morning sun hadn't touched. Somehow the man from earlier was back, seated quietly at the same table near the counter. When the insult rang out, he glanced up from a folded newspaper, expression unreadable. Their eyes didn't meet. He simply watched the scene with the stillness of someone taking in weather. Then, just as quietly, he turned the page and kept reading. She cleared the half-eaten eggs, cleaned the table, wiped the chair legs even though no one had kicked them. Not a word came out of her. The shift dragged. No one apologized. No one acknowledged anything. When the last customer left and the chairs were flipped upside down onto the tables, she finally walked to the back and sat on the bench near the lockers. There was a lunchbox in her hands, white plastic, the kind that never really sealed shut but still managed to trap heat. Except today, it was cold. The rice had clumped together. The vegetables looked tired. She ran her fingers along the edge of the lid, but didn't open it. She just sat there, shoulders low, eyes on nothing. And after a while, she placed the box beside her and rested her hand on top of it, not squeezing, not shaking, just there. The next day, the rain came steady and soft, tapping against the glass like it was asking to be let in. No one mentioned what had happened yesterday, but the weight of it still clung to the air. Gray light spilled across the checkered floor, and the restaurant smelled faintly of damp cloth and reheated bread. She walked in without an umbrella. Her old coat was darkened at the shoulders, frayed at the sleeves. Water dripped from her hem, but she didn't stop by the heater or the coffee pot. She headed straight for the tables. No one asked her to. No one even looked up. The cloth in her hand moved in small, quiet circles. One by one she reset the tables, adjusted salt shakers, picked up a straw wrapper someone had dropped yesterday. She paused at table 4. There was a faint stain on the corner. She scrubbed it twice. Outside, near the door, a small figure had curled into herself beneath the overhang. A girl. Young but worn. Torn sneakers, knees drawn to her chest. Her breath came out in white puffs. People walked past her without slowing. Some stepped over her umbrella, broken and upside down. The waitress saw her. Didn't speak, just walked to the back, opened her locker, and pulled out a plastic box. 4 small cakes, leftovers from the early batch she was allowed to take home. They were uneven, the edges browned, but they were warm. She placed the box near the girl, crouched for a moment, then took off her scarf and handed it over. Still, no words. The girl looked up. Wet hair clung to her face. Her lips parted, but the woman had already turned back inside. Still trying to impress someone? After yesterday? Please. She didn't answer, just nodded faintly, like she hadn't heard or maybe didn't mind. Then she picked up the same cloth and returned to table 4. She ran her hand slowly over the smooth surface, letting it shine. As if the stain had never been there. As if yesterday hadn't happened. A moment later, she stood still, one hand resting lightly on the edge of the table, eyes lowered, like listening for something only she could hear. Outside, the rain kept falling, quiet, steady, like something waiting. That afternoon, when the rain had thinned to a light drizzle, a black car pulled up across from the restaurant. Not the kind you usually saw on this street. Its paint gleamed even under the gray sky, the tires quiet against the wet curb. Inside, the air still smelled faintly of onions and reheated oil. The lunch crowd had thinned. She was behind the counter, folding napkins into triangles. No one looked up when the bell chimed. But then he walked in, the man from the table near the counter. Same stillness in his eyes, same quiet coat. But this time there was something different, something certain in the way he moved. Not hurried, not hesitant. He didn't sit in his usual corner. His gaze rested on her for just a second longer than expected, like he already knew what she'd say, even if she said nothing. He walked straight to the register, scanned the room once, and pointed. "I'd like her to serve me," he said, nodding toward the girl behind the counter. There was a moment of pause, too short to be scandal, too long to be casual. The owner raised an eyebrow. A server looked confused, but no one said anything. She stepped forward. He sat alone at a table by the window, the same table the man in the suit had occupied the day before. She brought water without asking. He thanked her softly, ordered a simple meal, ate in silence. When he finished, he didn't ask for the bill. He stood, adjusted his coat, and placed a plain envelope on the table. "Not a tip," he said quietly, "just something that belongs to you." Then he left. She didn't reach for it at first, just stared at it, creased, off-white, the flap not quite sealed. The envelope felt too light, but when she opened it, there was a folded slip of paper. No name, no signature, just a line written in a hurried hand. "I witnessed everything yesterday. No one said anything, but that doesn't mean you don't deserve to be treated right." She didn't blink. She didn't blink. Her fingers were still curled around the edge of the envelope, as if afraid letting go would make it vanish. Someone in the back called her name. A bell rang for another order. She didn't move. Instead, her eyes drifted to the window. The man was already gone, but the black car sat idling for a few seconds longer before it slowly pulled away. Only then did she touch the envelope again, flipped it over as if looking for something else. There was a small red thread stuck to the back, curled like it had once been tied to something. She held it between her fingers, and then, without a word, she slipped it into her apron pocket and went back to folding napkins. The street outside had gone quiet. His car, like the moment, had disappeared without a sound. She stood there a while longer, then slowly opened the letter again. The handwriting was the same, hurried but steady. At the bottom, a second line had been added, one she hadn't seen before. You taught me that kindness doesn't need to be loud. Today, I just want to say thank you on behalf of all those who have been silent. Her breath caught in her throat. She didn't cry. Just reached into the pocket of her apron and pulled out the handkerchief, no longer damp, no longer dirty. It had been washed, pressed, folded into a neat square. Someone had returned it. She placed it gently beside the letter, as if both were made of something breakable. Around her, the sounds of the kitchen carried on. Orders called. Plates clinked. But none of it touched her. No one in the shop could believe it. That the quietest girl, the one they barely noticed, had mattered so deeply to someone. If you believe that a good deed can change something, leave a heart symbol. Maybe someone needs to see their faith in good people again.